Okay guys, welcome back to the part 2 of our trail food creation with keeping nutrition in mind. We're doing our backpacking spaghetti for the trail. So the first thing that we're doing is we're going to cook down these onions. We're not going to saute them because remember, we do not want to add any fat to this because fat can make things go rancid. So I'm just cooking this in a non-stick pan until the onions are soft. So that is the first thing that we're going to do. Next, we'll go ahead and add the mushrooms. Okay, y'all, while our onions are here cooking, I'm going to go ahead and start the spaghetti. One thing I am doing, oops, I spilled some here, is I'm breaking it up into thirds because what you want to remember is that this will be in your camp stove, so we need to make it smaller, and we're also making, I think it was 16 or 18 servings here. So I want this to be easily portioned. One thing we did do to the water is add a bunch of salt, which helps pull moisture into the noodles and make them softer. So we're going to let that cook according to the instructions on the box, and we'll get started on adding the mushrooms here soon. Alright, so our onions are nice and soft, and I went ahead and threw in the mushrooms. This recipe calls for a pound of mushrooms, so we're going to cook those down until they're soft, and we'll go nice in the spaghetti sauce. The spaghetti right now is cooking. We're going to let that boil for about 10 minutes. Now let's go ahead and get started on the beef while this is cooking down. One thing I want to tell you guys about ground beef on the trail, besides the fact that we want to use a lean ground beef, remember that this is a 93.7 ground beef because fat has a tendency to go rancid when you're dehydrating, so we want to do a low fat. We're also going to drain this when we're done with it to try to get even more fat out of it. You can see here that what I've done is I've added a breadcrumbs, and I've added about 2 cups for this 4 pounds of beef. And the reason why I'm doing that is because rehydrated ground beef can tend to be like gravel in texture, and adding some breadcrumbs to it helps to prevent that. So this is going to help for the flavor and the palatability of the beef. So we're going to go ahead and get this mixed up, and once these vegetables are done cooking, we'll go ahead and set these to the side and then cook the ground beef in here. Okay y'all, so here are my mushrooms and onions, and you can see that these have cooked down. There's some liquid left over from the mushrooms here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and strain it to get the liquid out, and I'm going to set this aside, and then we're going to cook our ground beef. Alright, so I've been cooking that ground beef breadcrumb mixture. I use an Italian seasoning breadcrumb, and this is almost done. You can see how lean this ground beef is because there's not even any oil that we can see at the bottom of the pan, so I'm not going to have to drain this after all. The other thing you want to do is make sure you keep working it with the spatula to make sure it is as crumbly as possible for easy dehydration once we get to that point. So now my ground beef is done. My noodles have been cooked and drained. I have my spaghetti sauce ready to go, and you can see over there that my mushrooms and my onions are cooked, and I'm going to show you guys how to put all this together, and a very important step that you're not going to want to miss next. Y'all, I want to give a quick shout out to Woody the wiener dog, who is always happy to watch me cook. Aren't you, boy? Because I'm a messy cook. Alright y'all, we're about ready to mix all this together, and remember when I said that this had 18 servings? And each serving had a certain amount of calories. Well, how do we keep this as close to the bullseye as possible? I'm going to show you guys a trick. What you're going to use right here is a digital food scale. Okay? So you're going to go ahead and turn on the scale and select whatever unit of measurement you want. I'm going to go ahead and choose ounces. There's a bit of glare there, but it says ounces. So then you're going to take your mixing pan, and I'm using this big old casserole dish here, and I'm going to put it on top of the food scale here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero it out, so I'm going to go ahead and hit tare, and that gives me 0 with the weight of the casserole dish on top. So now when I add in all of these ingredients, I'll have a total weight of how much everything is, and I can divide that by 18. And then when I put this in my food dehydrator, I know exactly how many ounces to put on each tray to give me my 500 calories. So I'll show you that here in a second. Let's put all of this together. All right, so everything is on my food scale. I added the spaghetti and the sauce, and we'll add the vegetables and the meat here in a second. Okay, y'all, so I went ahead and measured out the whole thing. So my total weight of all this spaghetti here is about 15 pounds. Okay, so 15 pounds times 16 is 240 ounces. So this is my total weight of what I'm working with here. Now remember how I said this made 18 servings in order to equal your 503 calories? We're going to take that 240 and divide it by how many servings we're going to have. And that's going to let me know how many ounces per 500 calories. So what I'll be measuring out in each of my trays is 13.5 ounces. So let's go ahead and get to that. Okay, y'all, here we have the finished product, and this is a lot of spaghetti and meatballs. So our next step is to go ahead and put this in the food dehydrator, measure it out, and so let's get to that now.